Rooks. I am sometimes asked how Edward Thomas has influenced my own poetry. And I think perhaps the answer is that he may have influenced my thinking more than my poetry, because Thomas isn't someone you could imitate or would wish to imitate, so distinctive and so original is he. But I did, on one occasion at least, find myself writing a poem out of a notebook experience which was so common to the way Thomas went towards his poetry, having already established his format and his shape and his mind plan in prose notebooks. And this event happened at a dusk gathering, an enormous gathering of Rooks in Norfolk, very near where I lived, which is one of the largest gatherings known. And I'll start just by reading the notebook entry, and then I'll read the poem, Rooks. Notebook. At dusk, sometime between 5 and 6, 50 or 60 rooks overhead, east to a coppice of trees that I could not make out in the half dark. They made such a noise that I did not hear those approaching in a second larger flock, looked up by chance as hundreds came overhead. Perhaps what the blitz might have looked like. As they approached, those in the trees began to call and bank and veer. It seemed to me that I was watching a shoal of fish or the ashed embers of a bonfire rising into the night sky. Those too settled on the dark trees, and for 20 minutes, calm. But then from the west and from the south, across the marshes, others came in their many thousands. I'd never seen so many birds or heard such chorus. Quite untroubled by the high winds and the cold rain. The first flocks lifted from the black coppice, and the vast twisting ball of animals circles the cars for 10 minutes before going in. It was utterly mysterious, utterly breathtaking. Rooks. When the mark is lifted from your body, the ghost chased from beneath your skin, and we learn, as every living creature must, to heal again. Remember what it was that brought us here, to a marsh in midwinter in a gathering dusk, as roads root into shadow. Night comes nearer each night. So we rely on what we absorb by light, the gradient, the ground to foot, the hollow track, whatever we know to be there, out where sense would swear there is nothing to harm us but our fear. How reckless it seems to let it come in and do nothing to prevent it, not to reach for the car keys or phone, not to be thinking of torchlight, home, but laying down our upper hand and facing into the whelm. Remember then what brought us here under lengthening dark, climbing the lane to the inking oaks as the birds begin to gather. At first, there is barely a happening, a shuffling of cards in the branches, those Parliament cries reeling in tens from the telephone lines as they draw into thickening trees. And for time, calm, a hare in the harrow field, all else still. And we turn for home, believing it done, unequipped for the scene to come. From the south, above the cars, they come in their thousand, more swarm than flock, and oil smoke, lifting the choirs from their branches, others from outfields, as though rising through earth, shaking the bigger soil from their backs, until up and over the trees they funnel, 10, 20,000 of them, more. And we crane our necks at a tumbling shoal, unsure if it's upward or down that we stare. How we fumble for familiarity, recalling the likeness that is not a likeness of looking up as a child from a bonfire, watching the ash tufts rise and flit and feather in the night air. Why will the mind make one thing like another when some marks won't compare, when the ghosts roost and the cells coerce on a scale we cannot answer? Acts no God can tidy, that astound and stay long after the black birds have settled in the forest.